You're fired. Consider it my gift to you. That text message appeared on my phone at the exact moment the church doors shut behind me. I was still in my wedding dress, veil pinned perfectly, bouquet in one shaking hand. 5 minutes earlier, I had said, I do. Now I was standing in a quiet hallway where petals floated across the floor, and I could hear the soft piano music from the reception starting. The message was from Logan Cole, my boss's son. The man who had made my work life unbearable for months. He chose my wedding day to end my career. He didn't call, he didn't explain, just a single message. You're fired. I stared at the screen. My heartbeat felt louder than the music outside. I turned the phone toward my new husband, Jude. He didn't panic. He didn't ask questions. Instead, a slow, knowing smile crossed his face. He took my hands gently, kissed my knuckles, and whispered, "Don't look at your phone again today. Trust me. Today is ours." I had just lost my position as head of operations at one of the most respected hospital networks in the city. 2 years of sacrifice, late nights, and decisions that kept patients safe, erased in one sentence. But Jude's eyes were calm. Too calm. I slipped the phone into my maid of honor's purse and walked back toward the sound of voices and celebration. When the doors opened, I was hit with flashes from cameras, laughter, confetti, and warm congratulations. The world celebrated my new beginning, and I was hiding the sudden ending. I tried to smile, tried to focus, tried to breathe. But that message burned into my mind. You're fired. In that moment, I thought everything was collapsing. What I didn't know then was this wasn't destruction. It was ignition. The beginning of something I never saw coming. 3 hours later, during our first dance, my maid of honor, Tasha, rushed toward me with wide eyes. She held my phone in both hands like it was something dangerous. "Amelia, your phone hasn't stopped buzzing." I pulled it from her and stared at the screen. 92 missed calls. 37 unread messages. 15 from numbers I didn't recognize. Before I go deeper, I need to say this right now, because most people hear these stories and just keep scrolling. And then they miss the moment everything flips. If you want to know exactly how this ends, if you want the part where power shifts, where truth comes out, pause for just 1 second, like this video, and hit subscribe. You don't want to be the person who hears the beginning of a story and disappears right before the revenge takes shape. Now let me continue my story. And one name that made my stomach twist. M. Cole office. Not Logan, his father. The owner of the entire hospital network. I stepped away from the music, from the lights and laughter, and slipped into a side room lined with coats and gift bags. For a moment, the only sound was the muffled thump of our wedding playlist through the wall. I tapped on the first voicemail. "Amelia, it's Martin. Call me back immediately. There's been a mistake." His voice was strained, tight, nothing like the confident man I worked for. The second message came through automatically. "Logan had no authority to terminate you. Please call me. We need you in the office." My breath caught. The third message was worse. "We can't access the scheduling system. The auditors arrive Monday. No one can run staffing projections." I stared at the wall, heart pounding. My system. The system I built from scratch. The system no one else knew how to operate because Logan canceled every training session. The messages kept coming, one after another. "Amelia, please, return my call. We're in trouble. We need your access codes. We can't find the emergency coverage chart. This is urgent. Patients are at risk." The last message made my blood run cold. "Amelia, please, this isn't just about your position. This is about compliance. If the auditors see these changes, we're finished." I sank into a chair, still in my wedding dress, lace and silk pooling around my feet. Somewhere in the next room, people were singing, toasting, celebrating. I held my phone in both hands and listened to the final beep. 92 missed calls on my wedding night. In that moment, one thought cut through everything like a knife. Logan didn't just fire me. He started a fire he couldn't put out. I was still sitting there in silence when Jude found me. He slipped into the side room, closed the door softly, and knelt beside my chair so he was eye level with me. "How bad is it?" he asked quietly. I showed him the screen filled with missed calls, red notification dots stacked on top of each other like warning lights. He studied them for a moment, then looked at me with a calm expression that didn't match the chaos on my phone. "Listen to me," he said, voice low, steady, controlled. "Do not call them back tonight." I blinked at him. "Jude, they're saying the auditors." He placed a hand gently over mine. "I know. And that's exactly why you shouldn't call." I frowned, confused. "How do you already know what's happening?" His eyes shifted, almost like he was debating whether to say the next part yet. "Because for the past 6 weeks, I've been watching their reports come across my desk," he said finally. "Someone has been cutting corners at Northbridge. On purpose. Especially on night shifts, ICU rotations, and emergency staffing." My breath caught. "Logan." Jude nodded once. "He's been altering safety protocols after department heads sign off. Making it look like staffing numbers are fine when they're not." "That's illegal," I whispered. "Worse," Jude said, "it's dangerous. There were 2 near misses last month that should have triggered mandatory investigations. But the language was changed to make them sound minor." Silence fell between us. The weight of it pressed on my chest. "Jude, why didn't you tell me?" "Because," he said, voice steady, "I was collecting proof. Screenshots. Timestamp logs. Access history. Everything we need. Everything we need." Those words echoed in my mind. Something shifted inside me. Fear didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It became clarity. "So, what do we do now?" I asked. Jude didn't hesitate. "Nothing tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we get on a plane. We disappear for a week. We let them drown in their own mess." I stared at him. He wasn't suggesting revenge. He was suggesting patience. And patience is something people like Logan never expect. From somewhere beyond the door, someone called my name, announcing it was time for speeches. Jude stood and offered his hand. "Come on," he whispered. "Tonight, we celebrate." I took his hand and stood. I left my phone on silent. And as we walked back into the music and lights, one thought filled my mind. Logan thought he ended my career tonight. He had no idea he just handed me leverage. By midnight, when the reception ended and the last guest hugged me goodbye, I had 114 missed calls. Tasha tried to hand me my phone twice. I shook my head both times. That night, Jude and I went home, packed 2 small suitcases, and left before sunrise for the airport. I didn't check my messages once. On the second day of our honeymoon, sitting on a quiet beach with the sound of waves and distant music from a hotel bar, I finally turned my phone on. The notifications were relentless. 36 new voicemails. 93 unread texts. Most from the same number. M. Cole, office. I pressed play on the most recent message, curiosity winning over avoidance. "Amelia, it's Martin again. The auditors are demanding access to your system. We don't know how to generate weekend coverage reports. Please call me back." The next message auto-played immediately. "We're prepared to compensate you for your time. Just please help us get through Monday." I listened to 3 more messages. They all sounded the same. Urgent. Desperate. Begging. Jude sat beside me, sunglasses on, watching the horizon in silence. "They're panicking," I said quietly. "Good," he murmured. Another voicemail played. "Amelia, I'm authorizing double overtime pay if you can assist remotely. Name your rate." He had no idea that money was the one thing I didn't need. Jude reached over, took the phone gently, and pressed delete. "You don't respond to panic," he said softly. "You respond when they're quiet. When they're listening." Every day that week, more messages came. First urgent. Then pleading. Then bargaining. On the 5th day, I received a message that made Jude look up from his book. "Amelia, we'll reinstate your title immediately. Salary increase. Benefits. Whatever you want. Just call back." Jude set his book down. "They're still negotiating from ego," he said. "They haven't understood yet." On the 7th day, a final voicemail arrived. There was no negotiation in the voice anymore. No ego. No control. "Amelia, please. The auditors are here. They're asking for the staffing anomaly reports from March and June. We can't find them. They're asking who authorized recent changes to ICU ratios. We don't have answers. He paused, voice cracking. We need you. Please. Jude looked at me over the rim of his glass of iced tea. Now they understand, he said. Now we wait. I turned off my phone and set it face down on the table. Waves crashed against the shore. Somewhere far away, a hospital was burning in silence. And for the first time since that text message on my wedding day, I felt calm. When we flew back home 1 week later, my phone was a graveyard of unanswered messages. I didn't listen to a single one. The morning after we returned, I brewed coffee, sat at the kitchen table in my pajamas, and opened my email on my laptop for the first time since the wedding. There were 42 emails from Northbridge. Subject lines like, Urgent Access Request, Auditor Inquiry Follow-up, Critical Staffing System Failure. I scrolled without clicking. Before you respond to anything, Jude said from across the table, I want you to see something. He placed a folder in front of me, thick, heavy, organized with tabs and printed documents. These are the modifications Logan made to your system, he said. Every unauthorized change. Every edit. Every fake staffing report. I flipped through the pages. Red circles, yellow highlights, timestamp logs with his username. With each page, the truth became clearer. This wasn't incompetence. This was intentional. Logan had altered night shift staffing numbers to make undercoverage look acceptable. He changed wording on near misses to avoid incident reports. He removed mandatory second checks in medication protocols. Patient safety had become a balance sheet for him. I closed the folder slowly. If the auditors see this, I said, /Northbridge could lose accreditation. Jude nodded. Worse, someone could die if this isn't corrected. I sat back and stared at my untouched cup of coffee. Something unfolded inside me, not panic, not fear, something steady. Resolve. I will not go back as an employee, I said. Jude's expression didn't change. He had already known my answer. Then what do you want to do? He asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge. I looked at the laptop screen full of urgent subject lines from a company that thought they owned me. I want to work with people who actually listen, I said. People who care about safety, not optics. Jude leaned forward. There's something you should know, he said, voice low. The Health Oversight Board has been planning a new program, a compliance consulting unit. They need someone who understands hospital operations from the inside. Someone who can build systems that prevent exactly what Logan did. I stared at him. It felt suddenly obvious. You want me to leave hospitals and work for the people who regulate them, I said. Jude nodded. No. I want you to create something new, something bigger than a job title. Something that forces them to come to you on your terms. I thought about the system I built at Northbridge. Every safety feature. Every alert. Every protocol. They treated it like overhead. I treated it like protection. Then I'm done, I said softly. I'm done being the person they call only when they're drowning. I want to build something they can't ignore. I stood up, picked up my laptop, and walked to the window where the morning sun lit up the city skyline. Let this be the last time I ever react to a message from them, I said. Next time, they react to me. 2 days later, I sat at the dining table with my laptop, a notebook, and a cup of coffee gone cold. The house was quiet. Jude was at work. Morning light filtered through the window blinds. I opened a blank document and typed a name across the top. Saphaline Consulting. It looked strange at first. New. Dangerous. Possible. I spent the next 4 hours drafting a simple mission statement, a services list, and a framework for what I wanted to build. Not staffing assistance. Not emergency fixes. A full compliance system. A way to prevent shortcuts before they ever reached a patient's bedside. When Jude came home that evening, I passed him the laptop. You're really doing this, he said quietly. I'm tired of reacting, I replied. I want to design the rules now. We spent the next week filing paperwork, registering the business, and building a basic website. No grand announcement. No social media posts. Just focused work. On the day Saphaline Consulting was officially registered, I received an email from an unexpected sender. State Health Oversight Board, Contract Inquiry. I opened it slowly. Ms. Roberts, we're impressed with your system's background and previous operational experience. We would like to discuss a consulting contract to assist with developing new audit protocols. I stared at the screen. They didn't know I had just founded a business. They simply needed expertise. I typed a simple response. Yes. When can we meet? Meanwhile, the messages from Northbridge didn't stop. They only changed tone. The latest voicemail from Martin was quiet. Tired. Amelia, please. We are willing to reinstate your previous position, salary increase, full benefits, remote access. Just give us guidance. The auditors are asking questions we can't answer. No anger in his voice now. No ego. Just fear. Jude listened with me. They still think you want a job, he said. I don't, I replied. I signed my first consulting contract with the health board 6 days later. It wasn't glamorous, one office, one desk, one client, but it was mine. My rules. My systems. My name on the letterhead. I closed the office door that first morning, sat in a chair still wrapped in plastic from delivery, and breathed in the smell of new paint and paperwork. I was no longer an employee begging for respect. I was the person who would decide what respect looked like. And as I opened the first case file from the health board, something inside me settled. Let them call, I whispered to myself. Let them panic. I'm not coming back to save a sinking ship. I was building something better. Something that made them come to me on their knees. 3 weeks passed before the first audit results came in. I was sitting at my new office desk when Jude forwarded me an internal memo from the Health Oversight Board. You're going to want to see this, he wrote. I opened the attachment. A 15-page summary. The findings were worse than I imagined. Unauthorized reductions in ICU night shift coverage. Inaccurate logging of medication incidents. Removal of double verification fields in electronic charts. Every single change tied back to the same username. L.Cole. Logan hadn't just bent rules. He had rewritten the structure of safety. The audit report concluded with a single sentence that made me sit up straighter. / immediate corrective action required. Potential suspension of facility certification pending review. I read that line 3 times. Potential suspension. Jude arrived at my office that afternoon, still in work clothes, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. They're in meltdown, he said, placing another file on my desk. Northbridge is under full investigation now. Multiple departments. I flipped the file open. Emails between managers asking where their staffing ratios went. Screenshots of blank fields where alerts used to be. A printed message from a nurse manager. Who turned off critical alarms? We never received training on this change. The next document was a letter from the auditors to Martin directly. Until proper staffing protocols are restored and verified, your network will be subject to daily reporting and unannounced inspections. Daily reporting. Unannounced inspections. Northbridge wasn't just failing. It was collapsing under the weight of shortcuts they thought no one would notice. That evening, as Jude and I made dinner in our small kitchen, he kept glancing at his phone. They're going to reach out soon, he said. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. Caller ID. M. Cole, office. I let it ring until it stopped. Moments later, a voicemail notification appeared. I pressed play on speaker. Amelia, this is Martin. I hope you're well. We've had a situation. The auditors have flagged several unsafe modifications in our systems. We're prepared to negotiate consulting terms. Negotiate. Not offer a job. Consulting. The shift had begun. A second voicemail arrived before the first finished playing. / Amelia, whatever your asking price, we'll meet it. We need expertise immediately. I muted the phone. They still think this is about money, / Jude said quietly. I shook my head. No, they still think this is about getting me back. It wasn't. I didn't want to go back. I wanted something different. Something bigger than a paycheck or a title. I wanted accountability. I wanted systems that couldn't be ignored. And as I looked at the audit summary spread across my desk, one thought came to mind. They're finally feeling consequences, I whispered. Now the real negotiation begins. 2 days later, a thick cream-colored envelope arrived at my office. There was no logo, no corporate branding, just my name handwritten in neat black ink. Inside were 3 items: a formal letter on Northbridge letterhead, an unsigned employment contract, and a personal note from Martin. I unfolded the letter first. Amelia, we formally request your return to Northbridge as head of operations, effective immediately. My eyes moved down the page. Salary increased by 40%. Full benefits. Remote access privileges. Authority to hire support staff. Then I read the next line and almost laughed. You will report directly to Logan Cole, Director of System Operations. Report to Logan, the man who had fired me over a text message at my wedding. I set the letter down slowly. The personal note was shorter. Amelia, we need you. Please, let's move past recent misunderstandings and restore stability. Martin. Misunderstandings. That was the word he chose. I picked up my phone and called the number on the contract. Martin answered on the second ring. His voice sounded relieved. Amelia, thank you for calling back. We can discuss whatever terms you need. I sat at my desk, eyes on the audit documents spread around me. I'm not coming back as an employee, I said. Silence on the line. I could almost hear him adjusting his posture, recalculating. We can discuss different positions, he said. Director level, perhaps executive oversight. No, I interrupted. I'm not returning to a system someone else broke, so you can blame me when it fails again. Another pause. Longer this time. Then what are you interested in? Martin asked. I took a slow breath. Consulting. External. Independent. You hire my company, Saphaline Consulting. I create systems you follow. Not suggestions, requirements. Martin exhaled sharply. That would be highly unconventional. So is firing someone on their wedding day, I said evenly. He cleared his throat. Logan was acting alone. We're prepared to ensure proper oversight moving forward. No, I replied again. Logan doesn't oversee anything I build. Ever. The silence stretched. Finally, Martin spoke again, quieter now. What do you want? Spell it out. I leaned back in my chair. You retain your title as owner, I said. But Saphaline handles all compliance protocol design and review. Full access. Full transparency. Triple verification on critical staffing and medication systems. And Logan? Martin asked. He goes through my training modules. Every single one. From the basics. If he wants to work in operations, he learns the right way. There was a long pause, then a slow, controlled answer. I'll need to bring this to the board, Martin said. Do that, I replied. You have 48 hours. I ended the call and set the phone down. Jude looked up from a stack of files across my desk. Did you just give the owner of a hospital network a deadline? He asked. I shrugged. He gave me a text message on my wedding day. A deadline is courteous. For the first time, Jude laughed. And for the first time, I realized something important. This was no longer revenge. It was a negotiation on my terms. 47 hours later, my phone rang. Caller ID. M. Cole, office. I let it ring twice before answering. Amelia, Martin said without preamble, the board met this morning. I sat at my desk in my office, notebook open, pen in hand, already prepared. And? I asked. Martin cleared his throat. They agreed to your consulting proposal, with one addition. I waited. They want a minimum 3-year partnership with an option to extend based on performance metrics. No begging now. No panic. Just business. I tapped my pen lightly on the notebook. Performance metrics are fine, I said. We set them together, and Saphaline retains final approval on all compliance definitions. Agreed, Martin replied quickly. There's another matter, he continued. Logan will step down as Director of System Operations and move into a junior compliance analyst role. Junior. The man who fired me over a text message was now being demoted to the entry-level work I used to train people on. He will complete every training module your firm requires, Martin continued. Reviews, tests, site evaluations. No exceptions. This was not just concession. It was transformation. What about system access? I asked. Full transparency, Martin replied. Complete data access for you and your team. Audit logs, historical records, email trails, everything. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window at the city skyline. And compensation? I asked finally. Martin didn't hesitate. Triple your original salary, paid through Saphaline's contract. Quarterly billing. Retainer paid up front. Triple. Paid in advance. The audacity of that text message on my wedding day had now turned into a contract they would never have offered any employee. Send the paperwork, I said. I could hear Martin let out a long breath on the other end of the line. One more thing, Amelia, he said quietly. We're bringing in an independent ethics officer to oversee the implementation of your protocols. We want this to be real. That caught me off guard. Not because it was surprising, but because it sounded sincere. Good, I said. Accountability needs a witness. We hung up. Jude walked in moments later, holding 2 coffees. Well, he asked. I slid the contract email across my screen toward him. He scanned it once and raised an eyebrow. They're paying you a retainer up front. Yes. Plus triple salary. Yes. And Logan works for you now. Yes. Jude set the coffees down, leaned against my desk, and looked at me with something like admiration. Do you realize what you just did? He asked. You didn't get even. He smiled. You changed the entire structure. I felt a slow warmth rise in my chest. Next step, I said, tapping the signed draft on my screen. I want site access on day 1. Every data point. Every unit. Every procedure. You'll have it, Jude said. I nodded. Then it settled. I hit send on the signed contract. A wave of calm settled over me that I couldn't describe. 2 words echoed in my mind, the same words that started everything. You're fired. But now they meant something different. Now they meant, you're hired. By me. On the first day of the new contract, I arrived at Northbridge's main administrative building at 8 a.m. sharp. I wasn't wearing hospital ID scrubs or a badge. I was wearing my own company's name on a black blazer. Saphaline Consulting. The receptionist, someone new, stood up when I walked in. Good morning, Miss Amelia. Conference room 3 is ready for you. Ready for me. Not waiting on someone else. Inside the conference room, a stack of training binders sat neatly arranged at each seat. 10 modules. For tests. A full compliance checklist. Logan walked in last. No suit today. No designer watch. Just a simple shirt, sleeves rolled up, a notebook under his arm. He didn't make eye contact. I didn't offer any. Sit, I said simply. The first training module began at exactly 8:15. Basic staffing ratios for critical care units, I read aloud. I looked directly at Logan. Repeat the definition. He cleared his throat. ICU staffing requires a minimum of 1 licensed nurse per 2 patients, with additional float coverage based on acuity levels. It was correct. But I expected more. And why? I asked. He blinked, taken off guard. Why is that the requirement? His voice was softer now. Because night shift acuity levels are unpredictable. Reducing coverage increases medication errors and response time failures. I nodded once. Again. For 2 hours, I drilled him and the entire operations team on fundamentals they should have never forgotten. Every time Logan answered correctly, I made him explain why. Not rules. Reasons. By lunchtime, he was sweating through his shirt. After lunch, I took them all on a site walk through the ICU. The unit was quiet, machines humming, nurses moving with practiced precision. I pointed out a supply cabinet. What's missing? Logan stepped closer. Emergency crash kit isn't sealed. Tag hasn't been signed in 3 days. I marked it on my notes. Next, we approached the medication cart. Check it. He didn't hesitate this time. Missing second check signature on high-risk meds. I looked at him carefully. That wasn't arrogance. That was learning. By 5 p.m., we had completed 14 pages of site notes. You'll enter your findings tonight, I said. Before shift change. Double copies. 1 for me, 1 for the auditors. Logan nodded without argument. No shortcuts. No attitude. Just work. Over the next 3 weeks, the training continued. Every morning, a new module. Every afternoon, site checks. Every evening, written summaries. And every night, Logan stayed late. Sometimes I would pass by his office at 8:30 p.m. and see him alone, highlighting protocols, muttering definitions under his breath. One evening, I paused at the doorway. "You don't have to stay this late," I said. "I do," he replied without looking up. "I need to learn how to do this right." I stared at him for a long moment. Not the man who sent a text message on my wedding day. Not the arrogant son of an owner. Just someone trying to rebuild something he broke. "Then start with this," I said, handing him another binder. Ethical decision-making in clinical operations. He took it without hesitation. No excuses. No defensiveness. As I walked away down the hallway, one thought followed me. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was correction. 6 weeks into the partnership, I received an email titled, "Community Safety Presentation, Speaker Assignment." I opened it and saw one line that made my eyebrows lift. Presenter, Logan Cole. This was not training anymore. This was public accountability. The presentation would be held at a community center downtown. Nurses, families, patient advocates, local reporters, the people directly affected by hospital decisions. I decided not to announce I was attending. I wanted to see how he would stand without support. The night of the event, I arrived early and sat in the very back row, hoodie pulled up, no introduction. Logan walked in carrying a stack of binders and a projector remote. He looked nervous. Not performative nervous. Human nervous. When he stepped to the podium, he paused, took a breath, and spoke into the microphone. "Good evening. My name is Logan Cole. I'm a junior compliance analyst at Northbridge. Some of you may remember problems from last year," he continued. "Staffing failures. Mischecks. Protocol changes that should never have happened." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "I was part of those decisions," he said plainly. "And I'm here tonight to explain how we're fixing them." He clicked to the first slide. It wasn't a graph or numbers. It was a picture of a nurse on the night shift, bent over a chart, exhaustion in her posture. "This is who protocols protect," he said. "Not executives. Not spreadsheets. People." An older man in the third row raised his hand. "Why should we trust anything Northbridge says now?" Silence fell for a moment. Logan didn't deflect. He didn't defend. "You shouldn't, not yet," he replied. "Trust is earned through consistent action, not apologies." He spent the next 20 minutes explaining triple verification systems, walking through new staffing checks, showing how incident reports are reviewed by outside consultants. Every time he didn't know an answer, he said the same thing. "I don't know, but I will find out and get back to you personally." No lies. No shortcuts. Near the end, he closed his laptop and stepped away from the podium. "Last year, I tried to change protocols to save money," he said. "It put patients at risk. I can't undo that. But I can do better now." The room was quiet. Not impressed quiet. Listening quiet. As he wrapped up, a nurse in the front row stood. "I lost sleep over those changes," she said softly. "If you're really committing to this, we'll hold you to it." Logan nodded. "Please do." People began to line up afterward, asking questions, pointing out concerns, sharing experiences. He wrote every comment down. Every single one. I slipped out before anyone noticed me, heartbeat steady. Not satisfied. But something else. Hope. The next morning, I called Martin. "I saw the presentation," I said. He exhaled like he'd been waiting for my assessment. "And your verdict?" "He's ready for the next stage," I replied. "Promote him." There was a long silence. "Are you sure?" Martin asked. "Yes," I said. "Not because he's earned forgiveness, but because he's earned responsibility." I hung up and stared at the city outside my office window. Our systems were working. Not because of punishment, but because change had taken root where arrogance used to live. 6 months later, I stood on the rooftop of our new office building, watching the sun set over a skyline dotted with cranes and hospital lights. Saphaline had grown from one desk and a borrowed laptop to a full team of 12 compliance analysts, 2 nurses, and a legal consultant. Northbridge had changed too. Daily site reports. Triple verification. Unannounced compliance checks built into every shift. And Logan. He was promoted to assistant compliance manager, not because he was forgiven, but because he had earned trust through consistency. One evening, he stopped by my office doorway, holding a training binder thick with notes and highlights. I used to think protocols were paperwork, he admitted. Now I know they're people. I didn't reply with praise. Just a simple nod. Growth doesn't need applause. It needs accountability. A week later, the last audit report came in. 0 major violations. 0 safety failures. Northbridge wasn't perfect. But it was safer. Better. Not because they hired me back, but because they changed the system that once enabled shortcuts. On the anniversary of that text message, the one that said, "You're fired. Consider it my gift to you," I received another message. It was from Logan. "Thank you for holding me to the standard I never held myself to," it read. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed back, "Some gifts can't be returned, only repaid with better decisions." I set the phone down, feeling a calm I hadn't known a year before. Revenge hadn't been the point. Rebuilding had been. Not rebuilding what I lost. Rebuilding something stronger in the space where arrogance collapsed. If you're still here with me, maybe there's a reason. Maybe you've been betrayed by someone who never saw your worth until you walked away. Maybe you know what it feels like to be overlooked, underestimated, or replaced in a moment that should have been joyful. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to do one thing right now. Like this video. It tells the algorithm you want more stories just like this. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, have you ever turned a setback into strength? Your story might help someone find power where they thought they had none. Because sometimes, true revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead. On your terms.